It's a pleasure to have you here at our session. Now more than ever, a candid look at what HR professionals see as priorities in a time of upheaval. My name is Marcelo. I and my colleagues Gennady and James are with SHRM, the Society for Human Resource Management. We are the largest association of human resources professionals in the world. I personally am a senior accounts manager with SHRM Enterprise Solutions, the team responsible for working with organizations and corporate clients of SHRM. Personally, I've been coming to ERA for several years, and I've been involved with global mobility and learning and development my entire professional life, pretty much since I started my career over 30 years ago. I'm going to start by introducing SHRM, and then I'll turn it over to James and Gennady so they can talk about what we've seen in terms of what has happened, what is happening, and what we're going forward in light of the new world after the pandemic. To introduce you, in fact, a show of hands, please. Before looking at the session and looking at our profiles, how many of you were familiar or are members of SHRM? All right, about half the audience. Thank you. SHRM's purpose is to elevate the HR profession. Our mission is to empower people and workplaces by maximizing human potential, and our vision is to build a world of work that works for all. We are considered to be the voice of all things work, workers, and the workplace. We are a nonprofit organization based in Alexandria, Virginia, which is a suburb of Washington, D.C., and we've been serving our members and the HR profession for 75 years. In addition to our headquarters in Virginia, we have 7 offices around the world. We have one in Dubai, we have 3 in India, in Hyderabad, Mumbai, and Delhi. We have an office in Sacramento, California, and we have another one in Washington, D.C. as well. We also have over 550 chapters worldwide and almost 50 international partners, covering 120 countries. Right, James?
Yep.
We have in excess of 310,000 members. I mentioned that we have several partners. Here in Spain, for example, we partner with People Matters, which is an HR consultancy based in Madrid. We have many other partners throughout Europe, Africa, Asia, and Latin America. We are always open to new partnerships, by the way, in any region of the world. So if you're interested in partnering with us, please come talk to us, James specifically after the session. We'll be delighted to talk to you. Now, how has SHRM been supporting the HR world for 75 years? We've been doing this in a number of ways. We've been doing this through conferences, HR certification, research, our knowledge center, webinars and webcasts, the HR magazine, education and training, and enterprise solutions. We have also moved into the business of helping leaders make HR decisions and develop their HR departments, and are increasingly looking at people management and how our clients can help develop a strong culture within the organization. Typically, for somebody who knows SHRM, they may think of us as conferences, memberships, and the Knowledge Center. Our annual conference, as a matter of fact, is coming up in 10 days in New Orleans. I think yesterday, if you were in the opening session, Ted mentioned that we have about 700 people attending ERA this year, which is a record. That's terrific. To put it in perspective, our annual conference, which is the largest HR conference in the world, will have about 12,000 people attending in person this year and about 3,000 virtually. Pre-pandemic, we've typically have had 20 to 22,000 people attending in person. Last year, we had our conference, which was in Vegas. We had about 10,000 people in person and about 4 attending virtually. Many of them are folks like us who work closely with HR departments and who want to partner with more of the HR community. I mentioned the Knowledge Center. The Knowledge Center is one of the departments at SHRM that helps our SHRM members. It's staffed by senior, highly experienced HR advisors who assist our members with any questions they may have about human resource and the workplace. And I also talked about HR certification. James, I believe we have over 110,000 people certified by SHRM over the years. Nowadays, 9 out of 10 people who sit for an HR certification sits for SHRM certification. We have 2. We have the CP and we have the SCP certification. CP stands for the Certified Professional, and SCP stands for Senior Certified Professional. Gennady and James, would you please introduce yourselves and what you do at SHRM, please?
Thank you, Marcela. I'm Gennady Babankov. I manage the J1 visa program at SHRM, exchange visitor program for trainees and interns. I'm also involved with global mobility and immigration portfolio at SHRM and work with our external affairs on developing a partnership outside the US.
James Baker, Global Business Partner. I'm responsible for developing partnerships outside of the United States. Specifically, I focus on Europe, Sub-Saharan Africa, and the Americas.
Thank you. Gennady, SHRM may not be the most obvious organization to be here at ERA. Can you tell us why we came here?
Absolutely. You got it right, Marcela. And if you don't mind, I'll stand, just easier for me to address the audience when I'm standing. Marcela's been to this conference many times, but it's first time for James and for me. It's first time for SHRM as an organization to be here. So when we submitted the proposal and our proposal was accepted, we were very honored and we were nervous. We still are nervous about this. So as a result, we try to do our best. We prepared a brief presentation of about 60 slides, and there is a quiz at the end. If you fail it, you don't go to the gala dinner. Okay, well, we cannot do that to you, right? I mean, we are HR people. We're supposed to be, as you will see later, empathetic, and I will try to be one. But no, seriously, we did put a lot of information into our presentation with one goal. We were not sure what would be of interest to global mobility and relocation professionals like yourself. And why we're nervous? Because we're not sure if what we are going to present will actually address your interests. However, I feel much more relaxed now. I've attended some sessions, and I see that they have 2 types. Some are very specific, focused on mobility, relocation issues, and the other part are general topics, the same ones like we talk about at SHRM, and this can be war on talent. Well, the very first presentation which I attended here, the Immigration Symposium, war on talent, I mean, that's part of our presentation. It's developing organizational culture, mental health, inclusion, all these things. This is the same that we work on. What we're going to present to you is our authentic research produced by our research department, which Marcela mentioned. So this is material which was developed based on, in the United States, with the focus on the United States, but because we are the US-based organization, this is what we can share with you. Maybe your research will yield different results, but we would like to share ours. And I think it's important because, at least from our point of view, it will give you an idea of what we believe works and what we believe doesn't work in the in the HR area. And this will help you decide where to put your organization's resources. This is why we're here at this conference. Besides, of course, the obvious fact that Spain is great at this time of the year and food is wonderful and wine is great too. So those are given. But let me just give you one simple example comparison. So the topic of this, the theme of this presentation is Reset, Revive, Thrive. And the title of a book that our CEO and President, Johnny C. Taylor Jr. Has recently released is Reset, A Leader's Guide to Work in the Time of Upheaval. Obvious connection. So that's why we hope that whatever we have to say will not fly by you, but will actually help you set your priorities and find your ways through issues that we're all having right now. We are promoting the new concept of HR. I mean, not like new, last year's new, but I mean, it's been in development for years. But we're trying to move HR from a miscellaneous department and organization where people go twice to get hired and to get fired or leave the organization, and sometimes you go there to get some forms. We're trying to move HR from the position when HR follows the business development. We are promoting the view that HR is at the cornerstone of your business success, that HR has the ability to find the right people, retain the right people, develop right people, and people is everything. So we believe that HR should lead your business development and advise business leaders on what and how you can promote your business. So that is why we're here. And everything we do has one goal, to make sure that employees, people who work, your company, our companies, they're happy and they can bring their full to work. So that's what we're going to talk about.
How many people 3 years ago thought that they'd find themselves in a pandemic? Raise your hand if you thought we would have a pandemic. Nobody. Raise your hand if you were affected by a pandemic. Yeah. How important was your HR department in overcoming that pandemic? Did it play a large role? Yeah, exactly. Looking back on the last couple of years, it's been a particularly important time for HR. Our HR departments have really been on the front line. Have really been on the front line of a lot of the changes that we've seen in organizations, whether it's shifting to full-time remote or to, I think I've got a microphone coming, that might be better. Whether it's shifting to a full-time remote or you're thinking about a hybrid, or maybe you never even left the workplace, right? Maybe your HR department had to figure out how to keep you safe. Thank you. What do I do with this one? Oh, okay. Okay, yeah. So, thinking about how to keep your employees safe and what tools they need. Working with the IT department to make sure that everyone who works remotely is fully equipped. Managing your culture through the pandemic, right? Culture is super important to a company's success, and it's driven through its people managers, and through its HR department. And we've had to really rethink a lot of our company culture as we've, kind of spread our teams all around. Also, we've had a lot of challenges that we really haven't had in the past. A lot of difficult decisions being made. You had to lay off people very quickly or furlough them very quickly. And then coming back to work, you have to hire them very quickly. You have to identify the new needs and identify the old needs and separate the two. Mental health and well-being has become at the forefront. And this is largely driven through the HR department, right? What benefits are you providing to your folks? How are you supporting people when you lose someone on your team, or maybe someone on your team loses a loved one? These are conversations that became very real over the last couple years, and it's proven, the importance of culture and the importance of HR, and it's also reminded us of, all of the uncertainty that we face on a regular basis. There is a military term called VUCA. Has anyone heard that term? You know what it means? Yeah? I can help you. Okay, I'll help you out. So VUCA stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. So in a VUCA world, how are you supposed to plan for the future? How are you supposed to prepare your organization for the unknown? You know, right now we're seeing a lot of movement out of Ukraine, refugees, right? I don't think Ukrainian organizations were necessarily preparing for this, right? But these type of events make you think about what could happen and how you get ready for them. One way to do that is to just identify trends, high-level trends, learn a little bit about them, and think about how you can apply that to your organization. Specifically at SHRM, we've identified 5 trends that we'd like to point out today and tell you a little bit about them. Lingering effects of COVID-19. So here we are in a pandemic. Well, we're now back at a conference, no masks. We kind of feel like we're maybe getting through it. But there will be a lot of lingering effects over the next few years. What are those? The talent war and the great resignation. What is the workplace? So redefining the workplace, inclusion, equity, and diversity, and mental health and well-being. Starting with the lingering effects of COVID-19. COVID-19 pretty much affected everybody. Some countries were affected more than others, but no one was left untouched. In the United States, for example, we saw a 16% reduction in working hours. In Peru, they saw a 59% reduction. Right? So some countries, it will take them quite a long time to pull out of this. Other countries will move a little quicker, but we'll all be affected by that. And our workplaces, our employers, and our employees will all be affected by that. These effects were also not distributed equally. Right? We know that women were more negatively affected by the pandemic than men. And we also know that the youth, the younger generation, Gen Z, were more affected by the pandemic than established generations. We will see the effects of this play out into the future. The job market has been significantly affected. We saw a large amount of people move out of the job market. People retired early. People changed careers. Some people are not comfortable going back to work still. Some people are living on savings. But the result is that as we recover from the pandemic, we see a serious increase in the number of jobs available, but we don't have enough people to fill all of those jobs. And in some cases, these jobs have been around for a long time. People filled them, but they changed their career during the pandemic. They couldn't wait around. Look what's happening to the airline industry. They can't find pilots anymore, right? Also, we know that the pandemic has caused people to seriously rethink the way they feel about the world of work and the way that they feel about their job specifically. 2 out of 3 people, as a result of pandemic, are thinking about a career change. That's a pretty significant number. 2 out of 3 people say that they have different expectations for their job now. Half of people say that the only reason they're in their job is because of job security, right? And they would have moved on a long time ago if they weren't worried about external circumstances. And then interesting, 1 out of 3 people report being in their job simply because they have unused paid time off. So they've been accruing their paid time off. Eventually they're going to use it and then they'll move on. So if you're an employer, identifying these risks and thinking about who might be a flight risk and what you can do to address that is going to be increasingly important. It's important now and will continue to be. This all leads to kind of a war for talent. And I think everybody understands basically what that means, but we have some information on it. And then a great resignation, which we talk about quite a bit in the United States. It's actually a very large topic. And I was talking to a partner in Spain the other day, in Madrid. He said it's a conversation here as well. And it continues to become more important. So what I wanted to start with here, though, was just taking a look at a world map by median age. And I think this is pretty interesting when you try to think about the future of work. What stands out to me is, 1, Africa, where the median age are teenagers. Right? These are really young folks. They're not even in the workforce yet. And then you look at the Middle East, Central Asia, India, parts of Latin America, people in their 20s, so they're just beginning their career. So this is going to be the workforce of the future. When you look at other continents, you look at Asia, China, South America, the United States, we're in our 30s, more or less, and Europe, Canada, Japan, Korea, well into their 40s. So we have top-heavy societies, right? We're going to have a lot of people retiring, and we have to think about who's going to be the workforce that's going to support these people, right? Where are they going to come from? A few interesting statistics here, and one I'm not quite certain that this is really true, but it's food for thought. It's been said that the first person who will live to be 150 years old is alive today. What does retirement look like if you live to 150 years old? Right? What does healthcare look like when you live to 150 years old? Right now we have 5 generations in the workforce. This is the most that we've had in human history at this point. If we hit this number of 150 years old, by 2050 we'll have 8 generations in the workforce. 8 generations of people working together toward the same mission. How do you define your company culture when you're thinking about that large of a spread? 21% of organizations have moved into a flexible retirement plan, right? So I can think about my father, for example, retired. He was still young, 70 years young, and healthy, and he ended up going back to work, not for financial reasons, but because he wanted to do something. Now he serves as a mentor for up-and-coming architects. But I think you'll see more and more of this. 37 years old, that's the average age of a worker in the developed world. That is nearly 8 years older than it was in 2010, right? So our societies are getting older, and we're not having as many children. And then 15. So our grandparents' generation, more or less, would change jobs 4 times in their lifetime, just 4 times. Gen Z is estimated to change 15 times. So think about that turnover and the career progression of someone who is living that dynamically. Migratory patterns are going to play a role. If you think back to that map, right, you think about global warming, you think about job opportunities. Right now, we say around 4% of the world are migrants. By 2030, it could be as high as 20%. So that's something to consider. But on the other side of things, we also have a rise in nationalism. Right? In our estimation, 36 nations have moved toward nationalism, right? Or probably kind of a retraction away from globalization. And then the growing offshore talent. Right now, we have about 9% of the world's talent pool coming from Latin America and Africa. In the next 5 years, when those teenagers come online, we could see as high as 25%. So really thinking about where the talent is going to come from. In terms of the Great Resignation, turnover, people changing jobs, we've seen a lot of that. 2 out of 5 workers are currently searching for a job. This is United States workers, but 2 out of 5 are currently searching for a job. Half of executives and half of HR professionals say that they've seen much higher turnover in the last 6 months than they've ever seen before. So this is a reality. But why are people leaving? This is where it gets kind of interesting, because if you ask an executive why people are leaving, they'll say that, oh, they're leaving for career advancement opportunities, or they're leaving for better benefits. In reality, if you ask the worker, they're leaving for better compensation. They want more money. And now we have inflation, we have economic concerns. They definitely want more money. And they also want a better work-life balance. Right? They don't want to go to the office all the time. They started living a little differently during the pandemic, and now they're thinking about that. So as you work with leadership and you think about building out your companies, making sure that you're in alignment with your employees and that you understand what their values are is going to be crucial. And then what is the workplace? I think this is a particularly hard thing to pinpoint now. Some companies are fully remote. Some are hybrid. Some are fully in person, right? But defining what that is going to be crucial for you, especially when it comes to the culture piece. Because if you have some people who are in the office and some people who are outside of the office, how do they all feel included? How do you create a culture that works for everybody? How do you create a culture that provides benefits for different circumstances? So what we do know is that culture is seriously the most important part of your organization. If you were to ask American workers how much company culture helped them through the pandemic, 74% of them would say that their company helped them get through the pandemic. The values that their company had helped them. People managers will tell you that the culture within their team is it creates resilient teams. It's the most important part of building your team, is building a strong culture. However, HR departments have been struggling with building culture, specifically because of this division between work methods, right? Blended, hybrid, or fully in person. But from a business standpoint, we also know that it's super important. If you were to ask American workers, 84% of American workers would tell you that their company culture directly impacts how much money your company makes. Executives, 97% of executives say that it directly impacts how much money a company makes. So it's not just talking about culture so that you can do the right thing. Your business depends on it. If you want to just take a look right now, as of September 2021 is our most recent research on this, but we saw that 60% of people continued working in person throughout the entire pandemic. These are doctors, police departments, people who pick up the trash. All the essential workers continued on site. 25% were working remotely and 15% were in some form of a hybrid situation. Now it's probably reversed. We're probably closer to 25% in a hybrid situation and 15% that have gone fully remote. So as you think about your company, I would just encourage you to think about your company culture, the structure, how you organize it, and how that affects your talent acquisition strategy and everything you do. So I'll leave you with that, and I will give the microphone over to Gennady. If you have any questions after, then happy to cover them.
Thank you, James. Actually, let me get the clicker. I think my microphone is actually working. Thank you. So, mental health and wellness. A thing that used to be a small aspect of a health plan that you offered at work, not often used, has somehow become a really big and important issue. Let me just read this quote. Today's American workforce is a mental wreck across the board, HR professional. And that is true. Because what happened, COVID has proved us wrong in many ways. Yes, it's very nice to work from home and not having to commute and not having to wear a suit and stuff like that. But humans are social beings. And COVID has reminded this to us in a very clear and direct way. This lack of communication with the others, lack of direct contact, has resulted in things like anxiety, stress. It all puts toll on people's mental health. There are more kind of sinister reasons too. Well, we all live with realization that we may die anytime, but COVID made that understanding much closer to us. Much more realistic and much more immediate. People see others getting very sick and pass away. People lose jobs, supply chains disrupted, people have to suddenly deal with kids who otherwise would be at school, and so on and so on. One thing mounts on top of another, and also it does not help you maintain your mental health. So things which you would think, well, it's never going to happen to me, does happen to a lot of people. And here, so this research, yes, like James said, conducted in 2021, 21% of US adults experienced a mental illness in 2020. 1 out of 5 people. That is something to seriously think about. And as a result, $1 trillion lost due to anxiety and depression. It's not a little thing anymore that happens to somebody who cannot handle himself or herself. It's something, it's really turning into, if not a pandemic, but into epidemic. And here is the statistics show you how mental health affects our performance at work. Almost 60% people leave work feeling exhausted. Now, it's supposed to be like this. 30% say that whatever happens at work, the workplace culture, making them irritable at home. Even worse, I mean, they take it to their spouses and their children, and that affects other people. 26% do not feel emotionally safe at work. I mean, this is where we spend, most of us spend 8 hours a day, and more than anything else. And 30% dread going to work. I mean, impressive and scary at the same time. So, sometimes we used to think of mental health as some kind of issue that, well, I mean, just wait, sleep on it, it will go away by itself. You're having a bad day today, it will be better tomorrow. This shows that it's really not that. This research compares statistics which was taken at the beginning of COVID and a year and a half after COVID. And it really didn't change a lot. So for a year and a half of COVID pandemic, people still feel the same bad about their mental health in the workplace. 41% feel burnout. 48% feel depleted at the end of the workday, and 41% drained from their work. And as you see, it's either the same or a little bit up, a little bit down, but it's still the same. So the problem did not go away by itself. And here, accordingly, people start having different priorities. So again, things that we probably wouldn't even look at before COVID, now people do pay attention to it. 58% of workers said healthy work-life balance is more important than high pay or salary. I mean, again, just a little from myself. I don't know if it's a generational thing, if it's a post-COVID thing, if it's just a new development in the workplace culture. But think of a situation from 20, 30 years ago. I mean, this number would not be 58%. I mean, salary definitely ruled, but now people say that people give up higher salary for having a better work-life balance. 53% would leave their jobs if the new job offers better mental health benefits. And 35% directly said mental health benefits are more important than high pay or salary. Okay, so it's clear that mental health is of crucial importance. Where does it sit within the organization? Well, we believe that it's the HR, where the HR that has the power to provide proper mental health benefits and make sure that workers are not stressed and not exhausted. So HR has the power to curate and create resources, connect employees, and promote workplaces that are safe in terms of mental health. This is a little statistics of what companies offer in terms of mental health benefits. And I invite you to take a look and see where you stand in this respect, your company. Obviously, the most, you can see there are 3 clear winners. It's mental health coverage as part of the health plan. It's employee assistance program, and to some extent, workshops on mental health and resilience. Then there is a number of other benefits that are of considerably smaller importance. Yoga, classes on mindfulness, mental health apps, support groups, mandatory mental health training. But those first 3, this is how many companies do offer or plan to offer these benefits. Again, just some materials to compare your organization and see whether you are on the same level, above or behind. There is an amazing and laudable consensus between among the HR professionals on whether mental health is important. Almost 100% agree that mental health benefits help improve employees' health, that they prevent employee burnout, And also, it's important that organizations that do offer mental health are seen as empathetic organizations, and this is something we will touch on a little bit later. And there is a clear economic effect. There is a research, SHRM's own research, and also research conducted by American Heart Association and CEO Roundtable that shows that every dollar invested in a prevention of a program yields $2 to $4 of benefits from saved cost and better functioning. So we outlined the problem. What do we do now? Now we come to assessment. SHRM recommends that organizations engage their employees in finding out what mental health benefits are best for this organization. It's all individual. There is no universal solution. And this is one of the things where the input from employees is really important, because the mental health programs, they have to be not only liked by the employees, they also have to be efficient, they also have to bring result. And that's why proper assessment is the key. We recommend things like employee engagement surveys, utilization rate of mental health resources, and showing how much people are using it, and attendance and collecting attendance and productivity data. You can think what actually comes out of this. And what would I do, what would an organization do to start implementing the mental health strategy? First of all, let's ask, collect feedback from your employees and see what they believe would work for them, and talk to your leadership. See how the leadership sees the organization, what the organization thinks is appropriate to offer in terms of mental health benefits. Then you need to encourage people to use those benefits. This is a thing which happens very often. I can give you an example, which is not a direct example, but like SHRM has a lot of resources, external for members, internal for employees, resources on literally everything. But we don't always use them because they're everywhere. There are lots of them. We don't know what's available. So encouraging people to go and use those resources is a very important thing. And teach your employees about the value of maintaining your mental health and about the importance of mental health. Because again, it's a thing which often carries a stigma, and if you accept that you have mental health problem, you're afraid that people will look at you as strange, as sick, as not fit for a management role or for promotion or something like this. So maybe that was true 50 years ago, but not anymore. Organizations do hire specialists to talk about mental health. They do conduct workshops. They basically bring it to the attention of the employees that it's absolutely normal to have mental health issues, and we have to take care of them before they develop into something very serious. There is one more thing, our fifth strand that we would like to talk about, and this is diversity, equity, and inclusion, or inclusion, equity, and diversity right here. Of all trends, this has probably been the hottest trend in the past couple of years. Not entirely new, of course, but certainly was put on the forefront after the tragic events of May 2020 when George Floyd was killed. Certainly, racial injustice receives most of attention within the diversity, equity, inclusion framework, probably closely followed by gender. The thing, and many people know this trend from those perspectives. However, our point is that it really doesn't have to be reduced to two categories. Yes, there is more research on race and ethnicity probably than other aspects, but DEI is something that applies to all of us. We may not be racial and ethnic minority or any other special group, but every one of us has something special different from other people. You may be a veteran, you may be a single parent, you may be a person with disabilities, and so on and so on and so on. So it really that works for everybody. Sometimes we think of diversity, equity, inclusion as kind of American thing, probably because it gets a lot of attention in the US, has been getting, and it's getting now. We would like to argue that it actually is very applicable in Europe too. I mean, since we're in Europe now, so I'm focused, and in other parts of the world as well. Well, this continent has been diversifying in the past 30 years a lot. And now with refugee crises, whether it's Ukraine or Syria or other countries, the situation is becoming even more dire. And you have people who come from countries with different mentalities, different cultural norms, different understanding of the way of life. They're being forcefully pulled from their locations and put into different cultures. So you have clear situation of cultural clash, and this is where diversity, equity, and inclusion becomes very important. And even if it's not a refugee situation, if it's a normal course of business relocation process, still you're moving one person from one culture to another culture, still inevitably this person will be different from others around him or her. So this is something that needs to be addressed. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is more about nuances and our own understanding of this concept. It's not that much about laws. I mean, in the United States, we have laws that cover all kinds of discriminations, and there's no problem there. I mean, things that make you laugh at are clearly illegal, but it's how these laws are being implemented, and there is so much space in between laws. There are so many possible behaviors, hidden animosities, hidden bias, prejudiced attitude, so many things that do not fall under any of the laws, cannot be persecuted under the law, but they're still happening in the workplace and make people's lives miserable. The traditional formula is DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. The way you place these letters is kind of telling about what your organization values. We at SHRM started with DI, and that's why you will see DI in the following slides. And over the course of the year, we figured out that what's most important for us is inclusion. We are a diverse organization. We have people of different ethnic, racial backgrounds working there. We are equitable. I mean, as an organization, we provide opportunities for everybody. But are we truly inclusive? So this is the thing. Inclusion is very much how you yourself feel at your workplace and in your relationship with your colleagues. So this is what we are focusing on right now. But I would like to show you some statistics about how issues related to diversity and inclusion affect workplaces. Oh, and actually, before I move into that, I want to say that those three letters, DI, you don't have to limit yourself to those three letters. You can add A for accessibility. It's kind of a subset of equity, but it touches on specific issues that are of interest to this audience. Accessibility, I mean, rights of people with disabilities, for example, how you provide proper services to those who have limited physical mobility. Or you can add B as a belonging, which is a subset of inclusion, but B, again, more relates to you as a person. Inclusion is what the organization does to make you feel included in the workplace, and belonging is, I mean, you can feel that you have resources and you provide it for, but you may not feel like you're part of this workplace and you want to give your full to your work, so that's another thing. And if you think of this, you can add other letters. You know, the whole concept calls for individual understanding, and it calls for applying it to your own situation. So here is back to statistics. Pretty impressive numbers. And again, they are based on racial injustice, but the same thing we could say about injustice based on gender, sexual orientation, and so on and so on. Just if you would include everything, it would be not 60, but 360 slides, and nobody would come to this presentation. This shows you how many people were affected by unfair treatment based on race or ethnicity. In the course of 1 year, 14%. In the course of 5 years, 19%. Everybody is affected. Again, we tend to think that it's mostly minority who suffer from this, and that is true. 42% of African Americans felt treated, of those who were surveyed, felt treated unfairly, but still 12% of white people feel the same way. What do we have here? Does it happen just once? Is it an accident that somebody said something without thinking? No, it's a consistent behavior. Look, I mean, okay, 2% said the experience was more 100 times, and 12% between 6 and 10 times. And if you see, well, you don't have to read all the small fonts, but 72%, almost 3/4 of people experience it between 1 and 5 times. So every 3 out of 4 workers experienced episodes of unfair treatment based on race and ethnicity, whether it happened to them, whether it happened to their co-workers. So it really affects everybody in the workplace. Where does it come from? Again, is there one bad guy who does that? Unfortunately, no, and actually, most often, it comes from co-workers, from your own co-workers, people the same level, people who should be taking care of you just like you take care of them. 54% experienced unfair treatment based on race and ethnicity from the co-workers, and then managers, of course, direct supervisors follow very closely. Customers and, well, fortunately, human resources has the lowest percent here. But again, if you look in the text, 57% of people reported being mistreated by managers that are not their immediate supervisors, so higher ups in the company. And obviously, an issue that requires a complete revamping and re-examining of the company culture. And what happens when people feel unfairly based on qualifications that they cannot and don't have to change? Several things happen. Productivity is lost. People do not feel like working hard, in simple terms. And lost productivity can be expressed in days lost. So almost 50% of people lost between 1 and 5 days of work because of unfair treatment. And this is how much money it costs the American economy. $58.7 billion. What else happens? People don't come to work because they don't feel like coming to work, because they're afraid to come to work, because they feel unpleasant at work. And why? 48% experienced unfair treatment themselves, but it also affects those who are not targets. 10% didn't come to work because they witnessed somebody else being mistreated, and 11% did the same in response to current events connected to race and ethnicity. I mean, this is really, this is an occurrence with a really broad negative effect. And here is the economic impact of people missing work because of being mistreated. And what else happens? Turnover. People leave jobs. So here you see the percentage of shows percentage of people who leave because they were not treated properly. They didn't see opportunities for advancement because of their race, ethnicity. They left because they didn't feel that the company culture valued racial diversity. And we're talking about great resignation. So we don't need this to contribute to that great resignation. And that's the economic impact of turnover over the last 5 years. Almost $172 billion. To combat this evil, SHRM has launched a campaign called Together Forward at Work. and you see on the top, we define it as a call to action for the HR professional business to drive racial and social injustice from America workplaces. There are several things happening within this initiative. First of all, the research which I'm presenting has been developed within this initiative. There is a Blue Ribbon Commission, like an advisory board of specialists on business leaders and specialists on diversity inclusion issues that uses SHRM to advise on DI topics. There is also one important thing which I would like to share with you is employee engagement, and SHRM has established the Employee ID Council, which I'm part of, a group of volunteer employees who do meet once a month, and they talk about the ID situation of the organization. They suggest we work closely with the research department where we take our data from, and with HR department, because our actions, we hope to implement our actions and turn them into something practical. So we're talking about training for the employees. We test different speakers and presenters. We see what we can offer to the organization. And this is something that's, of course, being curated and helped by the leadership, but this is the initiative that comes directly from the employees. We all applied for those positions, we were selected, and we stay there because we are engaged. Those who don't have time or lost interest, they leave and new people come. So this is one of the ways to involve your employees into participation in a company inclusion, equity, and diversity culture.
Gennady, we have 4 minutes.
Oh, thank you, Marcella. So therefore, I will skip the rest of my presentation, but I just want to point out that empathy, the word which has been pronounced several times during this conference, we consider this a key element, not only for the equity, inclusion, equity, diversity, but for the entire workplace culture. Thank you, Marcella.
Thoughts, questions, things that you'd like to share? Yes, please.
You're talking about partnership and membership. Could you give an example of advantages and how does this work? How could be the type of partnership you have with your members?
James.
Sure.
The question that she asked was partnerships and memberships.
Oh, yeah, okay. So, I mean, so membership, we offer many different types of membership, from an emerging professional, which is essentially a student, all the way up to an executive member, right? We have what we call our executive network, and you can think of the Fortune 500 companies, CHROs. We also offer enterprise membership, where an entire organization can join, and that organization will leverage SHRM for their HR department. And that we have tools, resources, research, all of that sort of stuff. In terms of partnership, there are kind of traditional partnership models that we follow, which are, you could partner with us to provide HR certification in your market, for example, or you could partner with us around specialty credentials or other educational services. We also offer partnership around providing HR solutions. So we have employee engagement surveys, for example. We have organizational diagnostics tests, and you could partner to provide that, or as an organization, you could partner with us and leverage our services to achieve your organization's goal. And that if you partner with us as an organization, it really, the beginning kind of starts with the enterprise membership piece, and then it just builds out into a very kind of customized, bespoke model from there.
One more thing.
I'm not sure if that helps, but
just want to add one more thing to this. There's also global mobility and immigration, which we call specialty membership, which is for companies, which gives you one fee, which gives you up to 5 memberships. It includes all usual SHRM membership that James mentioned, and plus some benefits for global mobility professionals, networking, information updates, this kind of things.
If you'd like to get in touch with us, feel free to reach out. If you're interested in partnership, you can reach out to me. Specifically, Gennady has a J1 visa program. Marcelo can help you with any educational services that you're interested in. But by no means that's not the limit. If you're interested in this slide deck, if you're interested in accessing any of the research that we talked about today, all of that research has reports behind it. We're happy to share those. Anything that we can do to help you succeed as a business and help you succeed in your industry, please reach out to us. We're here as a resource for you.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much for attending. Thank you.